Well, we have the latest on the war between Israel and Hamas. Ceasefire talks have stalled in Egypt. Hamas says negotiations will resume next week. And the Israeli prime minister said the military will continue to operate in the Gaza Strip, including Rafah. CBC's Abby Kuthassan is with us on this story. So, Abby, what more do we know about the stalled talks at this point?
Jacqueline, there's a pause in the talks meant to achieve a pause in the fighting. That's the media report out of Egypt this morning, that the Hamas delegation has now left Cairo, but negotiations, they say, will resume next week. Now, there remain major gaps to reaching a possible deal, particularly around Hamas's demands that there is a permanent ceasefire and a full IDF withdrawal from Gaza. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has rejected this from the start, citing Israel's national security. And U.S. President Joe Biden had said he was looking for a deal to be finalized before the start of Ramadan, but that's this weekend. Now, the images out of places like Gaza City showing the desperate situation, people relying on food across the food aid, I should say, across the enclave, if that aid even comes at all. And certainly for family members of hostages waiting for a deal in hopes of seeing their loved ones again soon, they were also hoping for a deal. Let's have a listen to what one mother had to say.
I am relying only on the decision that she will come back alive. She's my daughter. She needs to be here with us.
Abby, as well, there are some reports today about U.S. military aid to Israel. What can you tell us on that front?
Well, we know that Washington provides more than $3 billion in military aid to Israel annually. What we don't know is to what degree the U.S. has ramped up its arms support in recent months, aside from the 2 foreign military sales that were made public. Now, the Washington Post is reporting this morning that the U.S. has quietly approved and delivered more than 100 arms sales to Israel since the start of this conflict. The paper is citing a recent classified briefing where this information was provided to members of Congress. It's important to note here, these sales went through without public debate because they fall under a certain amount. So despite the U.S. president being quite critical of the Israeli prime minister, especially in recent weeks, Washington continuing to provide things like precision-guided munitions, small bombs, and other lethal aid to Israel. And it must be said, we don't know how much of this is part of the usual yearly supply. Now, when we talk about the international community's response in recent weeks, particularly, we look back to December, I should say, at the UN General Assembly, how 153 out of 193 member states voted. They called for a ceasefire. Canada joined that global call at that time. And we did hear from the Malaysian Prime Minister, Anwar Ibrahim, this morning. He was speaking in Australia, and he was criticizing Western countries for not doing enough to help Palestinians. Let's have a listen.
Why, for example, has the West been so vociferous, vehement, and unequivocal in the condemnation of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, while remaining utterly silent on the relentless bloodletting inflicted on the innocent men, women, and children of Gaza?
Again, the White House has publicly pressed for more aid to enter Gaza, but critics say Israel's campaign wouldn't be possible without American support, and Washington could do more, much more. And in the last little while, Jacqueline, as you mentioned off the top there, Netanyahu pledging now that Israel will withstand any international pressure to end the war and achieve what he calls total victory. And he says that includes in Rafah, where about 1.4 million Palestinians are sheltering right now in what has become very much a tent city.
Abby, thanks so much for the latest on this. That's Abby Kuthassan for us in London.